What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, our big story, I guess, so far, at least getting the attention this afternoon, is that decision by Canada to basically expel 6 Indian diplomats, the Indian government responding tit for tat. This is Stuart Wheeler. Here's the Canadian chargé d'affaires from earlier this afternoon. Listen to this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have a statement to make. The government of Canada has done what India has long been asking for. Canada has provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and a murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now it is time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. It is in the interest of both our countries and the peoples of our countries to get to the bottom of this. Canada stands ready to cooperate with India.
Okay, that's just earlier today, or I don't know if this last night, I guess. I'm not sure. I think this was fairly late last night. So, Jim, this is a pretty big deal when you consider the fact that we know that in the past, Justin Trudeau has run into some opposition, right? Not exactly on best terms with the Indian government or with their prime minister. What does this do?
Well, the first question I have, Aaron, is why are they doing this on what is a legal holiday in Canada when people are pretty well distracted? But on the other hand, this is going to be the only news story they're going to hear about today. When I saw this thing break, and I hear the RCMP and listing off, and these are very serious accusations. This is accusing a foreign government of being involved in murder, and that's not the kind of thing, the accusation that you make lightly. And they dropped this on Thanksgiving Day. Trudeau and Madame Joly are supposed to have a press conference later on today. I've seen no indication of when that's going to happen. But I have to tell you, I have about 8 bazillion questions for the RCMP in terms of detail, but also why. Why are you telling me this now? You know perfectly well that this country is up and awake on Tuesday. And the other thing I can't escape, Aaron, is the fact that I'm not saying that the RCMP is wrong, and even though the timing seems a bit off, my concern is this the Liberals trying to change the channel? Because they know that the Indian government is going to just tell them to take a walk. We've been dealing with this for more than a year now, ever since Mr. Trudeau made the initial accusation. And I'm not saying these accusations are unfounded, but given that, we're throwing these diplomats out, you're throwing other diplomats out, this may well end up going nowhere. And I really wonder as well whether this press conference, as important as this main accusation number 1, that they're involved in the murder of a Sikh nationalist, or as the Indian government would have said, a Sikh terrorist. This last element here, the idea that the Indian government interfered in the democratic process in Canada, I'm wondering how much of this circuitry will eventually be soldered on to whatever we get out of the foreign interference inquiry, and whether indeed we are seeing perhaps a little bit of mise en scène here that is a really Herculean attempt on the part of this government to change the channel on everything that is going wrong with the Trudeau Liberals right now. And there's a lot going wrong with the Trudeau Liberals right now. Up until this story broke today, and I was going to talk to you about the events of this past weekend. That's still important. I hope we get to it. But the fact of the matter is this story is front and center. So they didn't shut up. Now it's time for them, though, to put up. Let's get some details. You want to accuse people of stuff. This is a pretty, these accusations were painted with a pretty broad brush this afternoon. I know the cops generally don't like to explain their case in detail during press conferences, but I think Canadians, no matter what your political leanings, need to have more detail on this. And as I say, as a Canadian, as important as it is that we find anyone who is involved in a conspiracy to commit murder and the commission of that murder, on the other hand, if a foreign government was actively interfering in the democratic processes in this country, I want to know that also very, very quickly.
It's funny you say change the channel, and I think to those words specifically said they said credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government. I mean, that's not maybe. That's we think. It's there, and we're bringing it up and we're pointing it out.
And of course, the conclusion from that is then you'll have no problem giving me your details, chapter and verse.
Right.
Simple as that. And because you don't make an accusation like this and then turn around and say, well, I can't give you details.
Right.
India is a Commonwealth nation. We have a large population of Canadians of Indian origin here. And no, not all of them are friends of the Modi government. And there are a lot of sort of divisions, political divisions that have been brought over from India. And you know, we thus far, I think we have been able to sort of deal with that. This accusation, even from last year, that the government was involved, the suspicion the government was involved, the Indian government was involved in the murder of this Sikh nationalist. Now backed up, irrefutable proof, whatever. We just ratcheted up everything. We just moved up to a higher plane here, and we can't turn around and say, well, we can't give you any more details. We have, they've really got to fill in the blanks here, Aaron.
Okay.
Because as I said, this is a major accusation, and they should fill in the blanks on everything. I hope this doesn't turn into like a 48-hour wonder where everyone says, well, we can't get any more details, so we'll just move on and talk about something else. This is huge. And honestly, if, as I say, the interference angle here is absolutely monumental.
Let's talk about what you said. You want to talk about what happened on the weekend, referring to what?
Well, the petition that was put together by 50 or 30 or maybe even just one disaffected Liberal MP, this broke on Friday night. I believe it was the Toronto Star that first reported that. Once again, a palace revolution going on within the Liberal caucus. Trudeau has got to go. We cannot stay on with you. We cannot win the next election with you as leader. It's time for you, for the good of the party, to leave. Huge blowback from Trudeau supporters, certainly online, saying that, this is going on, give us some names, do whatever. We have seen in the past, and we've discussed in the past, individual cases of MPs who have stood up and said, Trudeau's got to go, and then the next day they withdrew every single syllable of it. It's unclear at this point whether indeed this was just a bait and switch operation, whether it was just an operation by the opponents of this government to try and make it look even more beleaguered than it is. Personally, the suggestion that the Tories might be behind this disinformation, if it is disinformation, to me seems counterintuitive. If anything, if I was leading the Conservatives right now, the last thing I want to do is get rid of Justin Trudeau. If the polls are to be believed, he's going to be my ticket to power and a huge majority government. But all that said, we have gone from another appearance of a palace revolution within the federal Liberal Party, and quite frankly, because I was looking at the reports earlier before this India story broke. That was being taken very, very, very seriously by Trudeau and company. And now, all of a sudden, obviously, we're talking about something else. But it remains to be seen. And maybe, who knows, maybe if they get pushed hard enough, if there is, in fact, a number of MPs who feel that Trudeau has to go, they will come out into the light and step up and speak up. Because honestly, unless the polls are a complete scam, and there are actually people out there, Trudeau supporters, who believe all the polls are completely rigged against Trudeau. But all that said, unless they do that, you are going to see perhaps a lot of skepticism applied to any kind of perhaps even genuine disaffection within the Liberal Party about Justin Trudeau. All we know is everything that we see, all the evidence we have, that we would choose to believe. To think otherwise, I think, would be to really sort of condemn the entire sort of structure of polling that we have in this country. I think that's a dangerous place to be. And we all know that it isn't because of what happened last week or a couple of months ago. A lot of people are fed up with Justin Trudeau for a lot of reasons, and those reasons don't date from yesterday. Some of those reasons date back to even 2017. So I'm not entirely sure this attempt to turn whatever is going on in Ottawa or in the caucus right now into some fabricated misinformation campaign is smart, especially if we start hearing about this maybe again in 10 days' time or in a month's time. The numbers, I have no choice but to choose the numbers, and those numbers don't lie. 20 points is 20 points. Yeah. This this party is toast, Aaron, if they go to the polls. And even if they wait until next year, I don't see how those numbers are going to change as long as Justin Trudeau's in charge.
But, there is that story today, Jim, where Justin Trudeau has said, by the way, we're appointing a new campaign manager. He went and hired Chrystia Freeland's campaign manager. That seems to me to be a pretty clear indication that he's not going anywhere. He's ready for the fight. You got a new guy to lead him in there.
Well, that's the impression you'd have, right? Or on the other hand, it's the impression perhaps you would want to give, and I'm speaking theoretically here, Aaron, but that's the impression you want to give 30 or 50 MPs who are about to sign a letter saying that you have to leave the party, and you want to give them a very clear answer, I'm not going anywhere. But once again, Aaron, I despair over the future of the Liberal Party so long as Justin Trudeau is there. I think that he is going to sacrifice, to a great extent, this country's future for the sake of his ego. And anyone who listens to this show knows you're not hearing right now from a fan of Pierre Poilievre. I think this is a very, very dangerous situation for the future of this country. And we can sigh and shrug our shoulders and say, isn't it sad that people say none of the above when they're asked who's best to lead the country? But that's where we are, and that is downright scary. Last
thing I will ask you, I started the show today by asking our listeners this story where Quebec is now considering this idea of weighing the prioritizing of access to family doctors for people with existing medical issues before anybody else. You saw the story from the end of the week. What
Absolutely.
do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
As far as I'm concerned, this to me suggests the system is completely dysfunctional. When you start triaging healthcare, the idea that, you're healthy, you don't need no doctor, and all our lives we're told that the key to good health is prevention. Well, no, you wait until you get sick before we give you a doctor. Is that the little backwater mule track third world nation that we live in now? That there aren't enough doctors to go around, so we only got enough doctors for sick people. So just put a poultice on that and hope it clears up next week. That's ridiculous.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, thank you.
As a man.